friends. I'm so glad to see you today. Today we are going to continue reading from our Jesus Storybook Bible. There's a link down below in case you wanted your own copy. Now, today's story takes place in a garden, so I thought I'll read to you from my garden. Now there's a little bit of background noise because I have chickens and guinea fowl. That's that weird clicking noise you hear right now. But they're just going to come in and out, but that's okay, right? So let's get started, shall we? Today's story is called The Terrible Lie. Adam and Eve lived happily together in their beautiful new home, and everything was perfect for a while. Until one day, everything went wrong. God had a horrible enemy, and his name was Satan. Now, Satan had once been the most beautiful angel, but he didn't want to be just an angel. He wanted to be God. He grew proud and evil and full of hate. God had to send him out of heaven. Satan was seething with anger and wanted to find a way to hurt God. He wanted to stop God's plan, stop this love story that he had with us right then and there. So he disguised himself as a snake and waited in the garden. Now, God had given Adam and Eve just one rule, just one. He said, don't eat the fruit from that tree. Because if you do, you'll think you know everything. You'll stop trusting me, and there will be death and sadness, and tears will come. You see, God knew that if they ate the fruit, that they would think they didn't need him anymore, and they would try to make themselves happy without him. But God knew there was no such thing as happiness without him. And life without him wouldn't be any kind of life at all. As soon as the snake saw his chance, he slithered silently up to Eve. Does God really love you? The snake whispered. Because if he does, why won't he let you eat the nice, juicy, delicious fruit? Poor you. Perhaps God doesn't want you to be happy. The snake's words hissed into her ear and sunk down deep into her heart like a poison. Does God love me? Eve wondered, and suddenly she didn't know anymore. Just trust me, the serpent whispered. You don't need God. One small taste, that's all, and you'll be happier than you could ever dream. Eve picked the fruit and ate some. And Adam ate some too. And a terrible, terrible lie came into the world, and it would never, ever leave. It would live in every human heart, whispering to every one of God's children, God doesn't love me. But it wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare. A dove flew from Adam's hand. A deer darted away in a thicket. It was as if they were frightened of something, and a chill came in the air. Something strange was happening. Now, Adam and Eve had always been naked, but now they knew they were naked. Later that evening, as God was taking his walk, he called to them, "Children." Usually, Adam and Eve loved to hear God's voice, and they would run to him. But now they felt ashamed and scared, and they were hiding. "Where are you?" God called. "Hiding," Adam said. "We're afraid of you." "Did you eat the fruit that I told you not to eat?" God asked them. Adam said, "Eve made me do it." "Oh, what have you done?" God asked. Eve said, "But the serpent made me do it." And terrible pain came into God's heart. His children hadn't just broken the rule, they had broken God's heart. They had broken their wonderful relationship with him. And now he knew everything else would break. God's creation would just start to unravel and come undone and just go wrong. And from now on, everything would die, even though it was supposed to live forever. You see, sin had come into God's perfect world, and it would never, ever leave. God's children would always be running away and hiding in the dark. Their hearts would break now and would never work properly again. God couldn't let his children live forever, not in such pain, not without him. There was only one way to protect them. You will have to leave the garden now, God said, his eyes filling with tears. This is no longer your true home. There is no place for you here anymore. But before they left the garden, God made clothes for them to cover them. He gently clothed them and sent them away on their long, long journey out of the garden, out of their home. And in another story, that would have been the end. But not in our story. God loved his children way too much to let the story end there. So even though he knew that they would suffer, God had a plan, a magnificent plan. One day, he would get his children back. One day, he would make the world their perfect home again. And one day, he would wipe every single tear from every single eye. You see, no matter what, in spite of everything, God loves his children. Never stopping, never ending, never giving up, an unbreaking kind of a love. And although they would forget him and run from him, deep in their hearts, God's children would always miss him, and they would long for him. Now, before they left the garden, God whispered a promise to Adam and Eve. It will not always be so. I will come to rescue you. And when I do, I am going to do battle against the snake. I'll get rid of sin and darkness and all of the sadness that you let in here. I'm coming back for you. And one day, God himself would come. Now, thank you so much for joining me today, friends. I hope you liked my garden. I hope my pets and my guinea fowl and the birds weren't too loud for you. But remember, no matter what, God loves you. I'll see you next time. Bye.